Hey all, here are OS Reviews. In this video, we're taking a quick look at another rugged smartphone from Cubot. This is the KingKong ES, and it's a relatively affordable, more budget-oriented device that goes for under $100. And you're getting competitive specs, I'd say, for a $100 phone. For example, it touts 6GB of RAM with additional 10GB of virtual RAM, borrowing some of the storage space to get you up to 16GB. There's a 48-megapixel primary camera, and it's relatively slim as well, for a rugged phone that is, which historically have felt more like bricks in your hand, but this is actually as slim as a normal device, despite having higher ingress, water, and drop resistance. In addition, it has a pretty large 5,100 mAh capacity battery inside. That being said, areas where Cubot cut some corners to achieve a lower price point would be the screen resolution on this one is HD+, as opposed to being full HD, and it is an IPS LCD panel. However, it is fully laminated and has a teardrop notch measuring 6.56 inches diagonally, and it has a fast 90Hz refresh rate for the screen as well. It is a 4G LTE device, and it's fully unlocked, supporting dual SIM cards, or the second one can hold a micro SD card to augment the built-in storage up to 1 TB. It is currently running on Android 14, and it's powered by the Unisoc T606 Octa-Core processor, which is also found on some lower-end Motorola phones, and it's comparable overall in performance to something like the Xiaomi Redmi A3X, which is another budget phone that is around the same price. However, Cubot here does have a more durable build, a higher end camera, and again, like most rugged phones, you get that added water and drop resistance, which you're not going to get from many of the other budget devices on the market. There's also a decent 16-megapixel front-facing camera, although the rear camera setup, aside from that primary 48-megapixel lens, also includes a 2-megapixel macro sensor, which is not as practical as a ultra-wide-angle lens. Other connectivity and sensors include Wi-Fi, GPS, Bluetooth, accelerometer, light sensor as well, although you won't find built-in NFC on this particular model. The packaging though still looks quite deluxe, and we have some of the specs reiterated here on the rear. 128GB of built-in storage at least is plentiful, I would say, for such a low-cost device. And inside of the packaging you get plenty of accessories, including a USB charger. It is charging here at 10 watts though, so not the fastest speed, taking around 2.5 hours to fully juice up that larger battery inside, in addition to a SIM ejector pin, a quick start guide, in addition to even an extra tempered glass screen protector to give you more added endurance on the display. So a quick look at the design, you really can't tell that it's a budget phone from afar. With the kind of orange and black accent, I think it looks quite neat. In addition to the carbon fiber texture and rubber, it actually feels more like a premium device. I also like some of the accent marks on the metal, which makes it look like a compass almost, as well as a slight texture down below the camera here, which kind of shifts as you're pointing it over the light, really creating the illusion that this is a more expensive phone than the price here would imply. What I also appreciate is that the camera here doesn't really protrude too much from the phone, so as you're setting it down, it doesn't really wobble, which is really no longer the case these days with a lot of other Android devices. Also, despite the really slim profile, because of the use of metal for all of the buttons here, as well as some of the accents, it doesn't feel too hollow or cheap either. There's a surprisingly nice heft to it when you're picking it up, despite the fact that, again, it is very slim for a rugged phone. In fact, even slimmer than many other standard smartphones these days. There is a rear-facing loudspeaker. Now, it's not a stereo setup, but again, that's kind of par for the course. And located on the right-hand spine is going to be the volume rocker and power key. One other omission on this budget model, though, is there is no fingerprint scanner on the power button, so you can rely on face unlock, even though it's not the most secure on this device, or you can use a password or PIN. So it is one of the other corners that they cut to achieve a lower price point. The bottom here also features a lanyard slot, and there is a flap covering up the USB Type-C port for charging, preventing any water or dust from getting in, and located on the left-hand spine is a remappable hotkey that you can set to different commands like the flashlight or open up other programs by long holding, and there's also the dual SIM card slot. And that is more or less it. So there is no 3.5mm headphone jack unless you're using a dongle, but you can rely on wireless Bluetooth. And on the front we have that nearly 6.6-inch display, again fully laminated, so at the very least there is no gap between the glass and the LCD underneath, and it offers decent enough viewing angles. Of course, an OLED screen would be even better when it comes to contrast, vibrancy, and maximum brightness, but again, for a phone in this $100 price range, I think it's serviceable. And otherwise, we are graded to a relatively relatively stock version of Android from Cubot, which is thankfully free from too much bloatware or extras, and as long as you give it just a split second when it's first booting up, afterwards navigating around the UI feels alright. Of course, it's not going to be a flagship that is buttery smooth 24/7, but at least the 90Hz refresh rate makes scrolling just feel a little bit smoother as you're navigating across the user interface. All the standard Google apps are pre-installed here in addition to the regular Play Store, and as far as some extras are concerned, Cubot does give you a sound recorder, but that is effectively it. Everything else, including the calculator and the clock, are all standards built into stock Android. So you don't get really a toolbox on this particular model, interestingly enough, which we have seen in some of their rugged phones in the past, providing extra features such as, say, a compass, in addition to maybe a siren to get someone's attention, a decibel meter, as well as angle measurement, things like that, which might be potentially helpful when you're in the wilderness. Again, because it is a rugged phone. So that's kind of a surprising omission on here. It might be a little too barren, especially since it is a decent 128 gigabytes of built-in space, so I would have liked them to have that toolbox built in, but it is what it is. With that being said, Cubot's launcher does give you the option of choosing between either the standard app drawer that we saw there earlier, similar to on regular Android, or you can have more of an iOS-inspired view where you get unlimited home screens with all the applications that you're installing, in addition to a handful of additional wallpapers from Cubot that shows off the vibrancy of the panel. Again, not bad looking at all for a IPS LCD screen. Now, under the drag down notification tray, aside from the standard wireless options you can turn on and off, you can also find an ultra power saving mode, which simplifies the UI to something like this, allowing you to only access core functions like the phone for making calls, but this will basically prolong the battery for as long as it can, last in standby mode for over a week, believe it or not. But of course, functionality is going to be greatly diminished. You'll also find a shortcut for water camera, aka taking photos when you're underwater, because the touchscreen will be wet and not as easy to operate, so you can rely on the keys instead to snap a shot. We can swipe left and right to also begin recording video as well, and operates pretty much as you would expect, as you can tell there. So not a bad idea as a rugged phone. We can tap on the power key once to also exit. The settings on the phone are otherwise pretty clean, although if we jump into display properties, you're also able to change the color and contrast for it to be, again, a bit more vibrant by default or more color accurate. You can also adjust the color temperature down below. There's also a video display enhancement mode, which will try and convert it into an HDR-like view, again, just increasing the contrast when you're consuming media. In addition to the refresh rate can be dialed down to standard 60 Hz to consume less power, or 90 to make it just a little bit smoother. Also, located at the very top of the device is going to be a status LED, which is actually kind of hard to find in this day and age. It will tell you information like charging, as well as incoming notifications when the phone's display is off. And out of the box, you have well over 110 gigabytes of space left, but again, you can further augment that with a memory card if it's not sufficient. Definitely an upgrade compared to the usual 32 or 64 gigs that we see on budget phones, so you have a little bit more storage space. Smart gesture controls include flipping the phone over to mute an incoming call, as well as a pocket mode to prevent accidental triggers when you're just carrying the phone, and under Smart Key, this is where you can remap that hot button. A single press, double versus long press can all be adjusted. For example, right now we have a double click to turn on the flashlight, so if we do a quick demo of that, again, that LED light will then pop onto life, but we can also launch into the camera or open up any application that is installed on the phone. Actually quite useful and kind of a pro feature found on other smartphones from, say, Apple. Now you can also jump into the memory expansion to turn on the virtual RAM feature, although it will reboot the device. And last but not least, change between gesture navigation versus on-screen buttons and see if there's any firmware updates. Which, speaking of, I've already received one firmware update since testing this phone that improves on the stability just a little bit more. However, one slight con of some of these smaller Android manufacturers is they have less resources to push OS level upgrades. So Android 14 is probably what this phone will remain on. So this is an aspect that I hope these manufacturers can continue to get better at, particularly since even the budget phone space is getting increasingly competitive. Now jumping into the camera next, the UI again is quite familiar. We saw this previously with the underwater mode, but with the touchscreen we can also jump into the portrait mode using bokeh. Depth information is collected using that secondary lens, and you can also jump into a beauty mode that can brighten skin, hiding some imperfections, and there's even some interesting lighting modes, including a studio, in addition to a contour, stage, adding some more shadow into your portrait effect shots. You can also jump into a HD video, so this will capture at the full 48 megapixel resolution if you want to crop in and do a bit more zooming. However, the default will capture at 12 megapixels, binning it down a bit more. Under video, you can also capture footage up to full HD resolution, also par for the course as a budget phone. Now under additional, we're able to find time-lapse, panorama, as well as the macro lens. Even though again 2 megapixels, it's not going to be the highest resolution in the world, but if you want to get super up close to an object, there you have it. Night mode will slightly increase the exposure time to let in more light, but you have to hold very still because there is no OIS on this camera. And there's also a pro mode for adjusting properties like ISO and white balance. So budget phones have definitely improved, I would say. Even though it's not blazing fast, you can now get a serviceable experience without it feeling overly sluggish either. So here's a quick example of the regular 12 megapixel camera. There is auto HDR as well, in addition to Google Lens support is also built in if you want to scan objects, but you can tell that it's doing a decent job of adding a bit more details in some of the shadows, and does give it a pretty saturated look, but not bad if you like this degree of kind of vibrancy and color. In comparison, this is the 48 megapixel full resolution mode. There is no HDR, however, if you're capturing at 48 megapixels. So you can see some of the textures in the shadows maybe get blown out a little bit more. However, with 48 megapixels, again, you are able to zoom in further into your shots. So just for reference, this is as far as you can crop in the 12 megapixel shot. And as far as size is concerned, a normal photo will take up around 3 megabytes of space compared to the 48 megapixels can take up around 10 megabytes. So overall, it's a serviceable camera. Again, if you're a more picky photographer, then there will definitely be better options out there, but you'll likely have to spend a little bit more as well. Jumping into a couple of other performance aspects, including web browsing, doing a quick demo here. This is how it loads back more complex sites like The Verge. In fact, let's try requesting the full desktop version of the site. And you can see that it's just going to take maybe a split second longer for it to snap into focus, but afterwards you can still pinch in and out, and it feels decent. Again, with the 90 Hz refresh rate, still is more than usable enough. It's not going to be instantaneous versus, say, Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen series phones, but there's a huge difference in price as well. After recalibrating expectations, it still feels like an okay experience. At least it doesn't chug or feel too slow, just giving it a split second longer for it to initially load. Now moving to a quick demo of video playback and what the built-in speakers sound like. So all in all, it definitely gets plenty loud. We were only at around 20% in that particular test, but it was already sufficient to fill up a smaller space. So the good news is that 100%, this is definitely going to be audible. That being said, it definitely sounds a little bit on the tinny side at higher volume levels. Not the fullest sounding speaker, but kind of expected for a thinner phone. And you can always opt for Bluetooth headphones or buds if you want to improve on the audio experience. The screen, though, again, does a okay job when it comes to consuming media. At the very least, reception quality has been pretty stable. I was getting almost full bars with both Wi-Fi, and 4G LTE with T-Mobile here in the Seattle suburbs was also fine. So for staying connected and also playing back videos, it seems to be respectable enough. Picture-in-picture as well as multitasking with perhaps 2 or 3 apps open still is going to be an okay experience as well, but pushing anything past that will definitely start to chug down a little bit more. So decent for getting the basics done and maybe a little bit better than expected, but more demanding users will probably want to look at a more powerful chipset. Now as far as doing some other quick applications like gaming is concerned, my recommendation would be keeping things very light, so simple tap-and-go style casual games like Stack here will play alright, even though loading times will also be just a beat slower compared to other kind of mid-range phones with, again, faster processors. But once things do load, it still is playable, again, if you aren't really a competitive gamer, that is. If you're looking at heavier titles like PUBG and Asphalt, yes, it can technically be installed, but it's definitely not going to be the best experience, primarily because loading times will just be a lot slower, and you will have to lower the graphic settings to kind of the minimum amount. But as long as you're not super demanding, of course, you can still get by with some casual titles like this, just being a little bit more patient and give you an extra second or two for it to initially load. That is more or less it as far as our quick hands-on review of the Cubot KingKong ES. So we have seen, again, slightly higher end devices from Cubot in this line of rugged phones, but this is basically their light or their most budget model yet. So of course, to hit that price point, they've had to make a couple of compromises, primarily with a slightly weaker processor. There is no, again, fingerprint scanner on this model, as well as a slightly lower res screen. But on the flip side, versus other $100 phones on the market from brands like Xiaomi or Motorola, you do get a much more durable build. It is surprisingly slim, which I do really like, I have to admit, for a rugged phone. It just feels a lot more casual, something I can more easily take with me when on the go. Battery life is also, again, not bad. So if you're just doing the basics, again, things like communications, as well as web browsing, using some simple utility tools like the flashlight, then this is actually a pretty interesting choice. The virtual RAM expansion plus the plentiful 128 gigs of space built in are also nice extras. You can check out more details if you are interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Cubot KingKong ES.